The problem with falling home prices is that it will give prospective buyers a false sense of hope that things have actually become more affordable. Now, let me explain. There's obviously no problem with housing prices falling. Some sellers won't like it, but that's just a reality of the market cycles that we go through. But it only really makes a difference if prices drop if we're in the same interest rate environment. When prices were at their peak in the city of Toronto, you could get a fixed rate mortgage at about 2%. Today, it's closer to 4%. So even though we've seen almost a 20% decrease from the peak of the market until today, if you actually look at the cost of owning the property on a monthly basis, if you need a mortgage, it might actually surprise you. If you're a cash buyer, you can click off this video. Obviously, it is cheaper for you, but for most Canadians that I know and people that we work with, they have mortgages when they buy properties. So today's video is not going to be some real estate agent trying to do mental gymnastics telling you why falling prices are bad. That's not this at all. It's really just doing some basic math and showing you a conversation I've been having with our clients in visual form. So I ask you to be open-minded with me today as we explore behind the sale price and take a look at a really, really simple question. Has housing actually become more affordable? My name is Tom Storey. I'm a real estate agent here in the city of Toronto. If you enjoyed this video or other videos on our channel, make sure to like this video, get subscribed to the channel. You can also book a call with our team in the first link in the description. So let's just do a quick recap of what we've just been through in this crazy market, really all across Canada, but I'm going to be talking about specifics in Toronto in this video. What we know that has happened is that prices have dropped significantly from the peak of the market, which was pretty much for most property types February or March of 2022. But we also know that property taxes have gone up. If you own a condo fees have probably up in that time frame. Pretty much everything has become more expensive, including mortgage rates. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take $1 million purchase and compare it with an $800,000 purchase. That is a 20% decrease in average sale price. Then we're going to look at the time of that $1 million purchase. What were the 5-year fixed rates? And then versus today's 5-year fixed rates. We'll talk about land transfer tax, down payment needed. In all these examples, I'm using a 20% down payment with a 25-year amortization on the mortgage. All right, so let's go over these numbers. So let's assume you paid $1 million for a property in the peak of the market. Let's just say this was February of 2022. At that time, I went back and I looked, and you could get a 5-year fixed rate at about 2.3. Now, leading up to this, there was actually fixed rates under 2%, but let's use this number. And I will say too, is that obviously if you took a variable rate and bought at the peak of the market, none of this math is going to make any sense at all. That was tough. Honestly, very unlucky. That's probably a conversation for another day. But your down payment based on 20% down would be $200,000. And your land transfer tax, if you bought in the city of Toronto and you're not a first-time home buyer, was $32,950. Based on $800,000 mortgage, this as your interest rate in the first 5 years, your payment would have been roughly around $3,500 a month. Now, let's look at it if it was on an $800,000 purchase price, based on getting a mortgage today, where I think 4% is like a pretty safe number to use. I've heard some under 4, some over 4, depending on when you locked it in, but let's use 4%. And that means your down payment is significantly less because the purchase price is a lot lower. It's 20% lower. So your down payment that was $200,000 is now only $160,000. So big savings there. Your land transfer tax is lower as well, like $8,000 lower. And your payment is $3,370. Let's compare them side by side. So we know the interest rate makes the biggest difference. Obviously, the purchase price is 20% lower. Your down payment, you've saved a huge amount of money. You need less money down, which is great, and less in land transfer tax. But at the end of the day, trust me, I will come back to these two because these are really important. At the end of the day, your payment is like pretty close percentage-wise. Even though the price has come down 20%, that mortgage rate is so important to the true cost of owning a property. And I know too, even if you got a low rate on this number, when this rate comes up, it's going to go to this. So again, I'm not saying that buying at a higher price is better. That's not what this is about at all. It's really just to give some clarity to the numbers, because I just think most people think like, oh, if housing prices keep dropping, it's just going to be cheaper for me. It's like, yes, if the rates are low, if the rates stay low or keep going lower as the prices drop, then yeah, it will be cheaper for you. But the main reason why the prices dropped is because the rates significantly went up the fastest we've ever really seen in history. But it's not that simple. right? So I've shown you basically like, okay, the payments are kind of the same based on a 2.3% rate versus a 4% rate. But Tom, $40,000 less on your down payment, land transfer tax is less, and your mortgage is lower. Agreed to all those things. But it's not just that simple. Let's go a little bit further here. Let's look at that first purchase, that $1 million purchase at the peak of the market at 2.3%. After the first 5 years of that 5-year fixed rate, the interest you would have paid because it's such a low rate would have been about 41% of your payments in those first 5 years, $86,000 in interest, where your principal payment would have been about $124,000, or equaling about 59% of the principal payment. Now, in total, you can see the total amount that you would have paid over those first 5 years and how it was split up. So almost a 60-40 split. And the mortgage that was left over at the end of those first 5 years would have been about $675,000. Now let's take a look at the higher interest rate, but the lower price. So you look at the $800,000 purchase price at 4%. It's kind of just flipped. Your interest was $120,000 because the mortgage rate's higher, and you pay a lot more in interest when the mortgage rate is higher, especially early on in that mortgage. And your principal paid was $82,000 or 41%. So your total was $202,000 after the first 5 years. And just going back here to the other example, it was $211,000. So you did pay more, even at a lower rate with a higher purchase price, because the monthlies were about, I think, like $200 more per month. So over 5 years, over 60 months, that's going to add up to the difference that we're seeing there. But what's really interesting to me is the principal paid versus the interest paid. So now let's compare them against each other. So that $1 million purchase price, that $800,000 mortgage, you paid $86,000 in interest. The $800,000 purchase at a higher interest rate of 4%, you paid $120,000 in interest, just because the interest rate was 1.5% higher. These are things that I just don't feel like people are talking about that often. The principal paid on the lower price, or sorry, the lower mortgage, but the higher price was $124,000, and the principal paid on the 20% lower price was $82,000. So you paid less principal, you paid more interest, just because the mortgage rate was higher. Now, we talked about the total payments. Now, these numbers down here are obviously going to be a reason why buying at a lower price is always better. There's no doubt in my mind about that. That's not what this video is about. It's just the cost per month, because I feel so many Canadians are so laser focused in on what's it going to cost me per month to own this property. They should really be breaking down the numbers and looking at it more in depth like this. But I know, I've seen it. So many people are so fixated on this, even though your mortgage would still be significantly higher, not as much higher as you'd think maybe based on the $200,000 more purchase price, but you also put down a bigger down payment on this property. Now, I wanted to find a way to actually summarize it and break it down one step further. So let's read through this. So after the first 5 years, the $1 million home required $40,000 more in down payment and $8,000 more in land transfer tax. The lower interest rate means you actually built $42,000 more in equity and pay $33,000 less in interest, even at the higher purchase price. And this would result in an overall net savings of about $28,000 in real costs after the 5 years compared to buying the $800,000 home at a higher interest rate. Now, even though all that math is correct, I would still make the argument every single time, yeah, but having the lower mortgage at the end of it is still better. Yes, I'm paying a little bit more interest, but I think that's just what I wanted to bring up in this video. It's not as simple as saying, like, if you're cheering for house prices to come down another 20%, you just better hope that interest rates stay the same. Because otherwise, if interest rates go up and house prices fall again, the cost of owning is going to basically be the same, as we can see from the numbers here. The cost to get in is a little bit lower. The mortgage is lower, which is a good thing. But the cost on a monthly basis is very, very, very similar. So I hope this was helpful just to show you, because it's not as simple as saying, well, I want home prices to drop because then it's going to be more affordable for me. Well, is it really going to be more affordable for you? And the problem that I think is happening here, and this is kind of off topic here, but we're talking about, like, you know, single family homes or condos in this video, but on a much larger scale, who are the people sitting on a ton of cash that aren't as impacted by this? Corporations, developers. And a lot of mom and pop landlords are now getting out of it, and it's being taken over by these large corporations being financialized. So I don't know in the future if this is going to be a good thing or a bad thing, but the wealth is transfer as the prices have dropped and the interest rates have gone up. It's the big boys ready to pounce in on these things whenever that bottom happens. Who knows when that's going to happen? And I don't really love the direction it's going, but this seems to be the moments in time when no one wants to act on things, when the big money kind of comes in because they're sitting on a bunch of cash. Anyways, maybe that's a topic for another day. Hope you found this video valuable. My name is Tom Storey, and remember, home is where your story begins.